And now I have been lucky again, because now I can announce a very smart person to you, and I've been in contact with him for quite a while. Dietmar Dath. I don't want to mention all of his titles. He is not here for the first time. He's a journalist. He's an author. Dath grew up in Schopfheim in South Baden. After civil service, he studied physics and literature in Freiburg. His first books were published after the in independent publishing houses, but ever since 2005 have been actually published with Surkamp, the famous publishing house. His novel, Die Abschaffung der Arten, actually got him a place on the shortlist for the German Book Prize, which is remarkable because he is a Marxist communist, actually. And as an answer to the question whether he would be in favor of the abolition of the capitalist system, he simply said, absolutely yes. And Dath is hoping for a system where you have a division of labor, where you have Democrats living together, where you have a joint production using the latest technology. He has been updating Leninist theories. He actually attended our 2019 Congress and talked about the fact that Marxism does not need any prophecies. Socialism is created. So our society can also be created. So income and democracy belong together. He says poverty means factually that you're excluded from a democratic society. And I think this is a very, very correct and absolutely essential sentence and verdict. An American scientist, Orlando Patterson, said this, but it's Dietmar's opinion. For the working poor, those who die of despair, for communities that actually were disrupted, freedom has lost any shade of significance. So this is the title of his presentation today. Why AI, artificial intelligence, actually is making the demise of capitalism even more dangerous, and why artificial intelligence can facilitate structuring society anew. I'm really excited to listen to what he has to tell us. Well, now it's working. So the most important question is, can you hear me? Because, I mean, understanding me is easy, because people who have come here understand a lot. Otherwise, they wouldn't be here. We just have to make sure that more and more people come to understand the situation, because otherwise we will be in dire straits. Talking about the dark times, I mean, I attended a lot of congresses, so I was a little bit nervous this morning, and I went through a dark Berlin at 7 o'clock, and I passed by the federal parliament, and there's this glass installation with the basic law, and Article 3 says everyone is equal before the law, and so that you can even see that at night and believe that this is an okay state. This is highlighted in green. This is not a good color to choose in the first place. But then I went a little bit away from it, and I thought, well, actually it's yellow. And then I had to decide whether human rights would be more Zimmermann type or Habeck type, and both would be a catastrophe anyway. Human rights. This is an old demand by the civil society, that we are all equal. So they wanted to get rid of the noblesse, of the nobility, and in the Middle Ages, and then these slogans were put out, and then people die and bleed for overcoming the situation, and then these slogans are shed. When we talk about AI, this is also a buzzword. intelligence. People talk about it a lot. 26 articles are devoted to artificial general intelligence, whatever this might be. So AI, artificial intelligence, is a system that can do things like we do, but better, like finding your tax forms or playing chess. Artificial general intelligence is supposed to do everything better than we. And the promise behind that is you don't need to do these shitty jobs anymore. I want to show you that this promise is a lie. It's just like the promise of preserving human rights in yellow and green colors. Indeed, we heard slogans like this before. In the 19th century, we talked about the global market or world market. The idea behind it was everyone is equal before the law, and all goods that we ship would be equal before the market. It's not that everyone can buy things if you have the money. Then, of course, you are entitled to buy it. So the equality of the transfer of goods, the liberty of this trade is set to the same freedom of an individual. And then people keep on telling you this is equivalent to freedom and liberty. But we see that some of the goods contain the brain, the energy of people. So this then would mean that we talk about not what we've just heard, libertarian attitude, but the contrast. Market means supply and demand, and when we read Rosa Luxemburg's and Marx's scriptures, we can learn to what extent supply and demand have also facilitated militarism, because you want to govern the global market, of course. And the same is true today. Supply and demand, yes. Supply, this was the so-called Zeitenwende speech by Scholz, the Federal Chancellor, in 2022. And the demand you find in all these militarist publications published by NATO, where people say, okay, yes, this part of this side of Atlantic is not well developed. There has to be more public-private partnerships, 5G, and so on and so forth. You have to grow. Grow to what? I mean, yeah, Zeitenwende tells us a story, and the fact that now 3.5% of GDP should be dedicated to annihilation of other people seems to highlight the current situation. But the question by Lenin is quite interesting to say, well, whom? Well, I talked about the basic law, about Federal Chancellor Scholz. I talked about global economy. So who is doing whom? Let's have a look at the figures. In 2017, OpenAI was not a profit-oriented business, but it was kind of working for the common good. And they label themselves like this. They love to do that. And so then the transformer architecture is developed. This is something like ChatGPT, the chatbot that is talking like the stupid Bill Gates, and therefore people think this is human. There's this ChatGPT. T is transformer. This is a thing that has been invented. It was invented in 2017. 2019, ChatGPT and AI is no longer non-profit, and 2022, the Zeitenwende ChatGPT is issued.
Who does what to whom? Let's take in between 2017 things are invented to 2022, the thing is launched on the market 2021. As a matter of fact, the research bound by the common good, so AI minus civilian death machines, $1.5 billion spent on AI. And the EU, I think 1.04 billion. Private companies are all around the globe. Less or more? 2 billion? What do you think? 340 billion. So who will kill whom? So, AI is like the internet, a machine that interconnects human beings somehow. They are fed with information, but the social content will split them apart. So the old industrialization separated the artisan from his or her product. People are separated from their means of production, but they are brought together. And this creates the possibility of unity in action, strikes. And AI does this training But the human beings are invisible, so I'm working with something. The AI is somehow produced by human beings, but they do no longer exist. So the ruling class wants to have a coordinative monopoly on what we know. It's driven by venture capital, as they call it, small shops. They may use it. Venture capital is so widespread, and imperialism has become so monopolistic, state monopolism. A monopoly has become a state. The CIA even undertakes a venture capital society with Microsoft, Obama. There's so much talk about the huge difference between the governments, the administrations in the US, but they are not. Obama multiplied those drone stories compared to George W. Bush. It was Obama who had a swing door for the Apple and Google things. American, they said, it's the Android administration. Android is the one system, this operative system of the smartphones. The Google, Apple administration, well, they laid the ground for a climate. There was one man under the Obama administration, Jacob Gelberg. Please study what the less nice people. Gelberg was competent in Google for international global. I need to read it out because it's so mind-blowing. If they offered international efforts to combat disinformation and foreign interference. Translate this easily. Fight Russia, fight China. So he was the chief of the Wire the Wall, published in 2021. You cannot see the cover. There is an eagle and a dragon, and the dragon is red, and they're fighting for the cables. The cables is this monopoly on coordination. So no capitalist, no living capital will be attainable without the mediation by this technology. The American politicians follow in line. When Bill Clinton of the 90s, Bill Clinton, there was a new bill where no longer the state or the union would have their say, but just the investors that do not have the majority. They would have a chance to control them. Clinton said, okay, so be it, if they are not controlled by democratic means. So the petit bourgeois will control the big bourgeois. In the Silicon Valley, people spent some millions to influence the lobbies. And Clinton fell over the board, and it's bad for the economy. Bad for the economy. In plain words, it means good for the people that need to work. Whoever knows this whole story, how the Democrats in the US came on board early on, well, they would have a different view on this love story between Trump and Elon Musk, because these figures are interchangeable. Interchangeability, well, is key to the replacement. For example, the health insurance. Well, the interchangeability is the cusp of a wave that wanted to bring about digitization. So those are becoming more and more unlearned and unqualified in politics and the media. But Marx's idea was a polytechnical general education. He thought that it's a basic requirement for the knowledgeability, for democracy. Democracy is not just shit like any other shit, but it's the empowerment to know what you really want. Instead of this polytechnical general education, you have something. Those who are well ahead, they let me read out the physical journal. They are concerned. You have a generation of academics who can no longer interiorize what is being told to them. Is it due to YouTube? Is it due to gender? I would venture to voice one idea. If you tell the young people, well, there are somehow certain, general provision of necessity, intelligent jobs. Well, if they are treated well, they can learn it. Friedrich Schiller, Koreans go. Our brain is very good at that. But if you have on the galleon all the good seeds cancelled, they would just look at the handcuffs, the smartwatches. So at the same time, the idea is cropping up. Well, probably this training is much too comprehensive because once they study physics or chemistry, they still need to write papers to become qualified. And these are German sentences. But AI will do their job. Why don't we cut out? People do not have to write. Unlike, this is the nurtured idiocy of technocrats. So people cannot tell what they are doing. In other words, the general education that is necessary to install a heat pump, I need to understand certain equations. Well, you would say, okay, Minister Habeck knows what to do, and he knows why it needs to be 2.5% for destruction machinery, or 8%, or 100%. In the very same discipline in physics, because it's more motivating. We need to rethink the separation between civilian research, half driven, half sinking, German physics to the front. And the supply chain of knowledge, ability becomes a chain of command. This is all intertwined with the AI development. No longer will artificial intelligence will be successful. It's not a system. Herbert Sermon, the academic, wanted to impose this. It's not a system where you translate human thinking into a set of rules and program them. We are imitated by machines that can process unbelievable amounts. They are imitating us. With so much stuff, it will not be used only for chatbots, but also to find molecules that might be interesting for drugs. In other words, however, this means it would not be helpful. Well, if you fight fascism or Taylorism, just offering programming, because it's just a sheer amount of computing power that will be used that cannot be expropriated unless you expropriate entire shops. What you should do. Well, I'm fed up with it to concentrate on this presentation. No kidding, in 2017, when the transformers were invented, it's a mechanism. They call it self-attention. In the artificial neural networks, they make sure that whenever a particle appears in a chain of signs, that the other elements are present. So the attention span of the machines is growing, while ours is shrinking. We get the push messages with advertorials, so we do not know. It's an enactment of exploitation. It's hell. Well, in the international, our blood, it's our blood. They are not satisfied with our blood. Even the brain fluid will be sucked up by them. It is produced. Some of you might have noticed, if you don't have any premium subscriptions, if you just work with normal algorithms, they are worse than 10 years ago because the designer, the small niche markets need to be opened. They want to get rid of all their old stuff and, for example, the greens. What I just stated, the response to this business model, it does not work. It is unstable. No discussion. The economy, well, it's the economy. If the economy is at risk, they want to push through there. That's why we have this turn to the explicitly authoritarian mode with the Heritage Foundation, everybody has learned about the think tank. This Peter Thiel, the paper, this Circle of Friends of J.D. Barnes, he is a brother of Curtis Yarvin. Curtis Yarvin is an ideologue. He has a fascist idea of society. He said, by the way, the US has been on the wrong side during World War II. If you do not know where to place the people, they are saying where they belong. Yarvin says the best way of governing a state is like a company. So the citizens will do what the profit center wants them to do. Yarvin says it explicitly. This whispering in Clinton's era, worldwide freedom of trade for the monopolies. It's not reconcilable with public control and democracy. Well, they are stating it openly, and they say, okay, you need to find a reasonable faction. They do not want to destroy the world. Decay of imperialism, decay even of expertise and skills. That's all a foul thrift. Meke Mamaswamy, they say. Well, everything is so slow, so bureaucratic. Everybody, everywhere, the deep state. And they are against the prevailing of the business and aircraft falling from the sky, Boeing machines falling, the business ties. Geniuses like Musk, we need to replace them by our nerds and cracks, and they are ready to take the decisions where they are trained at the Western universities and in the research departments of the groups. They are prepared to produce just rubbish. You will no longer have the loyalty of the masses that is necessary for a highly complicated system where there is a basic trust of the people. I will not be destroyed. But that was the old motto. Social Democrats have beefed it up. Everybody can have success. It's down to your virtues. Everybody knows that this is no longer true. The capital is no longer interested in forming brilliant minds. So how can I say the authoritarian model? Well, and the answer is populism. Well, people are nerved by this huge amount of bureaucracy. When they wanted to do away with the last remnants of health, so you have a black eye and you get a hammer and you hack on your black eye, and well, the hammer is the new democracy. So this is the end of the old motto, the bourgeois idea of I'm old enough, as Gorbachev started out, when he talked about the general humanity, and he said, well, class struggle is to be demoted. Peace and environment are more important, because if there is no Earth, a nuclear war is not a war where you could say, well, you are up in arms, you just have to do away with the governing classes. This is the sense. But if you want to tell people really, well, you are somehow human beings everywhere, it's simply not true. The exploiters are not identical with the exploited. That's not true. That's not a human way of behaving. For this new fascism that is just holding its party convention right now, against which our demonstrating comrades are active, for those fascists, it's, as a matter of those who are called to cast their votes, no, they cannot determine anything. So the Riester pension scheme, well, just by a few shares, they know, they do not tell us what they are. Well, they will certainly earmark somebody for execution. And so you have this banding of forces. We call it a fascist group, and we call it governments. Leftist defense alliances, identitarians that are on the blacklist of those who will be killed off first. Well, we have been asking this, how can we fight against this logics of decay, about this wild, aggressive beast that is killing us off? How can we waken up the counter forces that will not have any chances of survival and will not lead to this preposterous defense? That's the second part in the announcement. Well, I said, why AI? Why is AI making this whole shitty thing even more dangerous? I think I have given proof of the first part of my announcement. As to the second part, well, you might think it's about what is offered by this technology that you could use for something reasonable. Well, there's also a written version of what I'm telling you right now. Well, I could tell you there are certain considerations. If we really had a society of performance, capitalism has never been a society of. I've never seen a capitalist who performed anything good. So, if you wanted to create a society of performers, high performers with a bottom that would nobody let those who know the critique of the Gotha program, how can we compensate somebody? If somebody cannot switch their performance, it will be automated and replaced. Will we credit them? Well, there is one idea. Let's turn the whole thing around with the copyright and the patents. Whenever I have a good idea and I do not find a venture capitalist or no corporate identity, I would not have the right to exploit this. While the company can patent everything, they can patent the Pinocchio idea, and they can earn for 100 years before it finally becomes a common good. To turn it around, any person whose person becomes superfluous and is made redundant is licensed, gets a credit point. We would have a certain blockchain and taking the minutes, wonderful ideas, or unionists can use this possibility to collect more information on logistics to identify the make or break points where so much money is benefiting the capitalists. Nice ideas, but these are just playful ideas. But where are the struggles? What are the power relationships if you do not have a social? I'm writing short stories about, that elaborate on this idea. We do not have the force that can create new relationships, new conditions. That are nicer than the nice stories. Elon Musk, who has even an artificial generation of his children. If they do not exist, nothing else will happen. Is AI something that hinders or that stimulates this fight? AI not as a technology, but as a weapon in this restructuring of the production conditions that is different from the factories. I would say yes. One thing is the benefit of this whole shit. When I walk around in the factories and when I talk to people, that it's a shortening of the learning curve. So within less than one generation, we have seen how the bourgeois class, to the extent that they do these killer drones and the AI things, for this development of the bourgeoisie has gone through this in an accelerated mode. Rather than saying we are for freedoms, they say openly we are authoritarian pigs. So it has been happening at a breakneck speed. The residue of humanism will no longer be bourgeois, but only in the no humanistic idea can survive in the fight against this class. It started with the suction of blood of the basic provisions for life and existence and old age pensions by financial assets.
It continued with work that is unpaid for people who are just collecting data, and so that AI systems could be trained. This monopolism is actually eating up society and just shits out private interests. And it shits on the common good. Recently, we've heard about this AI and Microsoft contract. We heard about the definition of artificial general intelligence. It's a benchmark. Somebody who's writing a nice piece of lyrics or just invents I don't know, an anecdote. No, there's a benchmark. They say if such and such an amount of $1 billion has been earned, then this is generalized AI. So the description of what we are as human beings, we are just profit related. So people are just there as tools to be squeezed. And how will it go on? I mean, estimates say that in 2028, the internet, to the extent that it is still open, will be sucked out uh, for information. Somebody of Zuckerberg's team calculated that. They also said that. So I think he also said that they need an immense number of uh, symbols, tokens, and numbers, and character change. So we actually would have to read for 17 billion years in order to get all the information. But he also said a child of 15 months has actually, or a 4-year-old child has actually processed more than these informational units. Now, we've heard that drones are still used, drones with AI empowerment, and this is a drone war. So that means wounded child, no surviving family. There's a category in the administration, an amputated child, a destroyed child, no family left over. Do you think that any class of people would actually stop to preserve the rights of a 4-year-old child at any given instance, at any given time? No, this bourgeoisie actually has lost any sign of humanism and humanity. I think the use that we can make of AI is AI can answer some questions, but it asks one question and it's very clear. Do we want to be human beings or do we want to be raw material? Thank you very much.